are. Now we're live. Sorry we're a couple minutes late. We had to, Angela and Spags had to talk some business. But we are here. We are here with live at Grumpy Acres with our special guest star tonight, Spags Unfiltered. And we are going to talk about the media tonight. This is everybody's favorite subject. Now, I want you guys to post freely in the comments and let us know what you're thinking. We'll answer as many questions as we can. I personally have been trying to get Spags worked up on this subject for the last 3 or 4 days. If you guys did not watch his 5 branches of government video, I'm going to link it down below after we're done, and you guys go watch that, because it will definitely it definitely going to get underneath somebody's skin, and it's going to get other people fired up. So, Spags, how you been? How you been, man?
Dude, I have been really good, actually. It's been a good start to the year. Knock on wood, no catastrophes yet, just slow riding. So
right,
I can't complain.
Okay, so I gotta tell everybody how this conversation started. So redstate.com had an article about Ray Epps. And if you don't know who Ray Epps is, he's the individual that was outside of the Capitol building on January 6th. Oh, it's kind of funny that, it's the 5th today. Tomorrow's the 6th. Anyway, he was outside the Capitol building encouraging people to go into it. And the January 6th commission had zero interest in him. Zero interest. And it came out last week that they released his phone text from that day. And he told his nephew that he had instigated it. And he had been an important part in making it happen. And yet they completely ignored it. So I wanted Spags to talk about that. Well, he rightly pointed out that the big story there wasn't necessarily Ray Epps. It was the fact that it wasn't being covered by anybody. And I mean, how'd you come to that conclusion? I mean, what made you think of that, Spags?
Because no one talks about it. It takes alt media, which is all pretty well at this point defined as alt-right media, which isn't accurate at all. But it takes them talking about something like this, right? It's kind of like, I mean, we could probably go through a list of stories that the media has covered or not covered over the last couple of decades, probably since about the middle of the second Bush term, I would say, is probably where we really started to see the controlled narrative with the news, at least in the way we have now. Like Operation Mockingbird, that was, decades and decades ago. But I think we're seeing the culmination of it now, to where there's just a completely encapsulated, solid narrative being pushed by legacy media and even now neo media. So yeah, when you see official documents that get leaked and no one's talking about it, you have to ask yourself why.
Yeah. And in case anybody doesn't know what Operation Mockingbird was, it was back in the 60s and 70s. The CIA partnered with newspapers and journalists and television to shape the worldview. And so the news agencies were working knowingly and willingly, working hand in hand with the CIA. And your 5 branches of government video, the CIA is part of the 4th branch, right?
Correct. The intelligence apparatus.
Right. And I told Spags, I said the 4th branch, in my opinion, probably goes a little bit further than that, because it's the unelected bureaucracy, and there's nobody in the intelligence community that is elected by the people or held accountable at any level by the rightful execution of the Constitution. So we talked about that a little bit, and I was trying to come up with a title for the video, and I started thinking about the fascist state and how the media becomes a building block of that. Now, I want to define fascism for everybody, because it's been thrown around so much that it's really become a non-word, right? Yeah. It's as bad as racist and quite frankly, as bad as hero. Yep. So what fascism is I've got notes here. It's a political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation and often race above the individual, that stands for a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, severe economic and social regimentation, and forcible suppression of the opposition. A tendency towards actual exercise of strong autocratic and dictatorial control. Spags, with that definition, would you define some of the things that are happening in our country right now as at the very least being demi-fascist, if not completely fascist?
I would consider 99% of it to be 100% fascist.
Right. Same here. I'm not trying to be one of those guys, but I agree with you 100%.
I'll be that guy. What do you need me to do, man?
Well, think about it. I mean, let's talk about what a fascist state is, and a leader that rules by dictate, right?
Yes,
we've seen that in spades, not just with the current administration, but previous administrations.
Yes,
we see social and economic regimentation through massive amounts of rules, right? And then the subject of the topic tonight, the forcible suppression of the opposition. And would you say that by the government leaning these news agencies, the media, to censor all these opposing views, would you say that that's a forcible suppression or not?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. The government has the ability to hold everything over you as a business or an institution, from tax breaks and tax credits to regulation. And so as long as the government completely ignores the mandates of a capitalist free market, which requires a laissez-faire approach to government, it has the ability then to use the power of money and the power of influence and the power of the threat of basically imprisonment and or death to get you to do what they want. It's 100% fascist.
Right. And so now let's segue over and let's talk about the media a little bit. I started doing I knew about Operation Mockingbird, and I had never really done any really in-depth view of that. Gosh, all the way back in the mid 70s, the New York Times and the New York Post of all media outlets both did stories in 1977, one in January, one in December, on the CIA's use of media to frame the narrative. And it's only snowballed since then, hasn't it?
It's gotten worse. I mean, look, you cannot take a system like the American system, especially on the cusp of our greatest achievements, our greatest moments, which I would argue were between the 1930s and the 1980s. That was probably the peak of Americana, right? And that peak was somewhere in that expanse, and it started to wane. In the 80s was where it finally started to tailor off. And yes, I blame Kurt Cobain and grunge music for absolutely screwing the entire country over. But essentially, it takes a while to take a nation that's as strong as the United States, that was the economic power, the educational power, the manufacturing power, and yes, the fact that we had a free press. All of that, you can't just undo it. It's an implemented and a staged event that takes place over time, which is why, yeah, you're absolutely correct that in 1970, they might have had 20 videos, not videos, 20 articles a month across the country that somebody who had a CIA handler helped to orchestrate, right? Now, everything is done digitally. These guys are getting their marching orders from somewhere, and it's just being pushed out, which is why if you go online, whether it's Yahoo News or MSNBC or the Google News ticker, it doesn't matter. It's the same damn article everywhere with like little nuanced changes to make it seem like it's unique to someone else. I'm sure you've seen the videos on YouTube where like 90 morning shows across the United States all open with the exact same 400 words, right? And it's the exact same news story, the exact same byline, and each news anchor just tweaks it a little bit to be as perky as that blonde is that day,
Yep. Oh, and you see it. You see it on the you see the compilations. Crowder does those all the time. It just drives me nuts.
Yeah.
But so we and it's really yeah, absolutely. Spags is waving at the chat, and if we're not saying hi to you yet, we're just talking. But I want to thank everybody that came on here. We see Backwoods showed up. Starla was the very first one, and Jules was a close second. We got Tiger, Lucky Dame's in here, Random JL, or who else is in here?
It's like we're at the Grammys and you're listing everybody you thank.
Yeah, I'm not going to have time to thank everybody. But you guys, thanks for showing up. And if you got anything you want to add to the conversation, feel free. I am watching it. It may not look like it, but I am watching it. Anyway, where was I? Oh, you said that it's accelerated. And it seems like it's accelerated on every single front, doesn't it?
Yep. Absolutely. And 2020 was the absolute culmination of it. We saw it. It's like they stopped trying. It was like they felt emboldened completely by the successes that they had up until that point. And holy cow, man, in 2020, if you watched any news, local, national, if you watched crap from the beep, it was almost like the only legitimate reporting you could get was on Al Jazeera, for Christ's sake.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like everything else was the same story. Even RT, which I actually used to like, Russia Today, which is a complete Russian propaganda channel. But they used to, because they were Russian, they accurately, in many ways, reported on American misdeeds in the Middle East, right? You can't even go there anymore. Everything is controlled. It's every damn thing's been infiltrated. And when everyone's going about their day and all of a sudden everyone stops, looks at the camera and goes, you're like, whoa, 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 who's pulling that string? It was so noticeable.
But absolutely, I agree 100%. I was going back and looking at some of the things that where the narrative had been set with government insistence. I didn't realize that Britain and America had teamed up regarding Syria and completely done the narrative there. I didn't realize it was. I knew it went on. I just didn't realize how extensive it was. And same with Libya. The whole Arab Spring thing was media driven by the intelligence community.
Absolutely. The CIA, MS6, and the Mossad are the trilateral evil for Western propaganda. They really just are. Right. Everything that you see happens within those three intelligence agencies.
Jules made a point earlier that even the news, some of the news, well, I'm not going to call them news people. Some of the commentators today are actually CIA trained, like Anderson Cooper.
Yes. There have been leaked documents that came out under Edward Snowden that showed that the CIA had training camps for reporters. They were cranking them out from Langley, left and right. And then they were making sure that they were getting hired all over the place. I guarantee you a good chunk of them were getting a paycheck.
Yep. Yeah, I would not doubt that. But how does a controlled media like that become a building block for a fascist state, though? I named it that. So what do you think the correlation is there?
I think you have to go back a few steps and understand corporatism in the United States, phony capitalism, state-sponsored, capitalism, whatever you want to call it. But cronyism goes hand in hand, and the narrative really gained traction when we got this in front of every kid. The minute everyone had a screen in front of them, the minute, it used to be you had one TV in the house in the living room, right? And it wasn't until dad got home and the news went on. And then after that, there was a variety show. And then after that, maybe a late night show. And during the day, you were watching stuff like Andy Griffith or My Three Sons or Lost in Space, right? That's how I grew up. But now there's a TV in every room. Everybody in the house has at least two devices, a cell phone and a tablet. And if they have that, they also got a smart thing in their car that they can link their phone to play their stuff. And again, I'm not necessarily saying technology is bad. I'm not that guy. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what this was supposed to be. What I'm saying is that right there, this bombards your brain with what's called alpha waves. And alpha waves are scientifically shown to work in direct correlation with fluoride. And it produces a very dumbed down effect on people. It causes people to become lethargic. It causes them to become very mentally, what's the word I'm looking for? Passive. They're very passivistic. So you have an entire country right now who's chemically altered. They're being medicated through their drinking water without consent. And then the alpha waves that beam out of your televisions and out of your smartphones and your devices, it almost causes this mesmerizing effect. And you can see it constantly when you're watching TV. And let's say you're watching TV and you're kind of interested in what's on. There's not much on, but you leave it on anyway, right? And you're like, oh, well, this will do. And then next thing you know, 15 minutes later, you're like, oh, shit, I lost track of time. That's the mesmerizing effect that alpha waves and fluoride have on the human brain. And so you combine that with now an agency that has the ability to completely craft the narrative across every possible outlet they can get their greedy little fingers in. And now you have both a technocratic dictatorship married to the dictatorship of a narrative coming from a forced press. You marry those together, your kids don't even have a choice. They have no clue it's even happening because they're being literally hypnotized by this stupid thing.
Well, and add on to that the fact that the latest couple of generations are indoctrinated into accepting the narrative as the truth.
Yep.
Whether it's verifiably false or not, it's the truth. And what it's done, what the whole process has done, it's created an entire segment of our society that the truth is whatever they feel it is, and that used to be
my truth. My least favorite thing Oprah ever coined was, this is my truth. Like, screw you, dude. There's one truth. There's only one. Now there can be varying shades of it, and there's perspectives on that truth, right? You're going to perceive the truth differently than I do, but it's still the truth, right? There's no such thing as my truth, your truth. Water's either wet or it's not when it's in a liquid state. It's either steam or it's not when it's in a vapor state. There's no two ways about it.
No. Well, and that's the whole point. That's the whole point of the media being controlled by the government, in a sense, is the fact that if they don't want steam to be gaseous water, it's not.
Right.
And they will make everybody believe it's not.
Right. And somebody's going to write a New York Times bestseller that everyone's going to see in the airport somewhere that says how 2 + 2 can equal 5 and why you're wrong to fight it. And 50% of the people walking through that airport, oh, it's a New York Times bestseller. I'm going to get some education, and they're going to buy it. And they're going to read that shit while they're on the airplane. And they're going to come out on the other side of that 8-hour trip a little more confused. And so that's what they do, is they break you down over time. They confuse you. And then they slip their version of the truth in. And they basically, it's like they take the mortar out from between the bricks and refill it with their own mortar. And you don't even realize you've been completely reprogrammed.
Right. Yeah, I'm sitting here, you're talking about it, and I'm like, geez, that sounds kind of like Marine Corps boot camp.
Well, boot camp is nothing but a psyop, whether it's Army or Marines. I mean, I think the Air Force is a little more corporate. They're not quite as bad, and the Navy is a little bit different. But Marines and Army, how else are you going to get otherwise young, in-shape dudes who just discovered what girls are to go over there and kill people they've never met? Think about some of the cadences we sang in basic training and you in boot camp. Josie stuff, right? Where someone's screwing your girl back home and you're going to die doing this, but they're going to pin your medals on your chest and your parents are going to be given a folded flag and everyone's going to love you for it. But you're dead.
That's really kind of a scary realization there, that what's happening in our living rooms is essentially the same thing that happens in boot camp. That is a terrifying thought, actually.
That's exactly what it is. It's a psychological operation, and that's what the fourth branch of government specializes in.
Yeah. And then the fifth branch specializes in delivery.
Yep, that's all it is.
But okay. So we've identified the problem. We've identified the root cause of the problem. Now, in recent times, without getting me in too much channel with the powers that be at YouTube, let's talk about some of the, like, over the last 3 or 4 years. Let's go back to, say, 2018. All right. Let's go back there and let's see if we can identify some of the things that they used to say were conspiracy theories that have been proven true. Right. the list is pretty extensive, but let's do all the easy ones, and let's dig down and let's talk about some of the more obscure things that people don't talk about or they don't know.
Sure.
Right. So what was going on in 2018? Well, I talked about Syria because that's whenever the narrative on Syria was really set. There were people that they're Spags partially filtered. No,
he's going to pick up on that now.
You can say anything you want. I brought you on here. There was a conversation in fact, it was on your community on freesteading today. Maybe it was on Darren's about experiments that could kill you. And I made the comment. I made the comment that the things that almost kill you are the funnest things to do. So here we are.
Yep.
Let's do it. Be dangerous.
Rocket wars. Still have both eyes.
So go ahead and start. What in your opinion, what are some of the things that have gone on in the last 4 years that are really important?
In the last 4 years, okay, the Syria situation was one, because the Syria situation. Let's go back another year. Let's go back a little bit more, because we need to piggyback off of a lot what happened in the Obama years for this, because Obama set the stage for a lot of what happened from 2016 to now, right? Mm-hmm. The Syria thing. How about the fact that guys like me were called morons because I said that the Mossad and the CIA created ISIS. Now we know that Ukraine is hiring ISIS fighters to fight on their behalf against the Russians. How would that happen if ISIS was the enemy of the West? And why is it that ISIS only showed up and killed a bunch of people whenever conveniently something was happening with, I don't know, Edward Snowden shedding light on something, or the Chelsea Manning story, or anything that Ron Paul ever said? So yeah, there's a big one. We created ISIS along with Israel. It was controlled opposition. It was our terrorist organization that we created so that we could use them when necessary to overthrow regimes that didn't have a Rothschild-controlled bank.
Okay,
i.e. Libya, i.e. Syria, i.e. Iraq, whatever. Well,
and how did them doing all this stuff affect us as individuals? I can say that it helped create the NDAA state that we live in. The security.
It helped create that for sure. How about this? You go up to anyone on the street and you say the word ISIS. What's their reaction going to be?
Yeah,
right. They're going to negative.
Yeah.
And then how many times did we find out that the beheadings and the throat cuttings were done on green screen? There's pictures of it. There's pictures at Langley, Virginia, of them with American soldiers in orange jumpsuits sitting with some brown dude with a knife to their neck with a green screen behind them. And next thing you know, it's on the news, right? Desert in the background. And it was all staged. Who remembers Desert Storm when we were faking beach landings on CNN? Just saying.
Yeah. Well, actually, they didn't fake the beach landing. They just did it in place it wasn't.
Right. They wanted Saddam to think they were somewhere else.
Yeah, I remember that. I actually know some guys that took part in that.
That's crazy.
Whole thing.
Now,
yeah.
Which goes to show there may be times when a little diversion is necessary. Now, I'm not a fan of the Persian Gulf War. I'm not a fan of Bush Sr. The guy was CIA. He was evil as shit, in my opinion. But I understand why they did it, right? But that's not what they're using it for today. We're not using it to advance the cause of freedom. We're using the word freedom to advance the cause of fascism. And that's part of the PSYOP.
Yep. Okay, so what else you got? What else can you throw at people that to give them an insight of what happened to them?
From that time period, you had Syria, like we talked about. We had ISIS. Marching forward a little bit further, we had joint operations between China and Russia that supposedly took place in the Pacific. And because the Angry Yam supposedly blew some shit up in Beirut, all of a sudden it changed the course of naval drills between Russia and China. We now know that Russia and China completely finished their naval drills, and that the concept that we used some fifth generation warfare to blow that port up in Beirut was not true. It ended up being Mossad.
Yep.
So there's that. Generally speaking, we try to do this stuff also. Well, there was also a lot of political stuff too. Okay, I'm going to piss some people off with this one, but your previous president was a psyop. Sorry, not sorry, but Trump is a lifetime Democrat. He voted Democrat. He contributed to the Obama and Clinton campaigns. He was a lifetime friend of the Clintons. I'm not saying the guy's a hardline Democrat, but he certainly wasn't the Republican savior everybody thought he was. And what did he do? What did he actually accomplish? In 4 years, the man completely disheveled the GOP, the only opposition at the time, sort of, to the Democrats. And now you have a splintered GOP that now is 3 micro factions, none of which can agree. And the Democrats are marching full court press with their liberal agenda. And everyone still thinks, oh, QAnon, blah, 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 white hat military. You're retarded, dude. That guy completely destroyed and shredded what it meant to be a conservative. And all you can do is praise him still. And I don't mean you personally. I mean the political right. They were psyoped to death by Donald Trump. And they still think he's the savior. They still can't see past the absolute controlled opposition that he was. Nobody remembers that Donald Trump met with the Clintons on board the Clintons' private jet 2 weeks before he announced his candidacy. What do you think they talked about?
Yep. Full disclosure, I the first time I voted for him because the alternative was terrifying. And the second time I voted for him is because the economic upturn.
If I was a voting man, I'd vote for him just because, man, the memes were awesome. They wrote themselves. The entertainment value alone was awesome.
Well, and you're right. The news media painted him as some hard right conservative. And if you look at his track record on the Second Amendment and some of the stuff he did on the First Amendment, the only
I'll give him his due. The guy kept us out of war with North Korea. I'll give him that. Okay. I have no problem giving even my enemies their due when they do something correctly. He kept us out of war with North Korea. I was Army for a long time, and I had a lot of friends on tarmacs waiting to get on board planes to go invade North Korea in 2017. That got staved off. Okay. Yeah. I'll give him that. But the guy literally said, we'll take the guns and let the court settle it later.
Yep.
And every MAGA guy out there was like, tread harder, daddy. MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. If Obama had said that, they would the blogosphere would have erupted.
Yes, it would have.
But Republicans, when Trump said it, were like, oh, he's playing 4D chess. I'm like, you're retarded. What is wrong?
And we find out after the fact that the intelligence agencies were actually driving the narrative that made him appealing to the people that supported him.
Yes.
And it was, it's kind of disheartening.
Figured it out by now. There's no such thing as a modern day Messiah. The one Messiah has come. Stop looking for another one.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. We're not gonna find any help from above. If we're gonna fix this, it has to start right there in the room you're sitting in right now. And it has to start between here.
Yep.
Right. And that's part of what this video is about. I mean, we're blackpilling people, which I really, you know how I feel about black pills and we need to serve up white pills. But this is one of those things that people need to understand what's going on, and we need to get outside the paradigm, and we need to, at the very least, if you walk away from this, be armed with some stuff that you could take to somebody that does listen to the narrative and does not see what's happening. And you got to admit, Spags, it's really easy when you start talking about this stuff in a realistic manner to come off sounding unhinged. You got to admit it's really easy.
Of course it is. What was it that was said? What did Jesus say? A prophet is never accepted in his own country, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you're in America and you're a part of a political party and all of a sudden you're saying something that's not popular within your own political party, you're going to sound crazy. And it doesn't have to be politics. It can be religious. It can be social. It can be a chess club. It can be anything. If you're the one guy or one gal saying something completely different, you are going to completely sound crazy.
And speaking of sounding crazy, let's jump forward to 2022, late 2022. Mm-hmm. The media has elevated Elon Musk to basically the same level. They've managed to elevate him, and he's done some of it himself. But you got to admit some of the Twitter file stuff that's coming out in our circle. It's just, and with a lot of, I guarantee with everybody watching this too, it's nothing but verification. But do you think releasing that stuff is another psyop, or do you think it's legitimate?
I think it's both. I think that's the beauty of it. It can be both. They can use the truth all they want. It's in their files. They're the ones with the top secret ability to slap black marker across everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't you tell the truth at the right time? I mean, if I know something about you, let's say, and for those at home, this is completely hypothetical. Let's say I know something about Garen that Angela doesn't know. Okay. And let's say that what I know will piss Angela off. And I say nothing, and I say nothing, and I say nothing. And then all of a sudden we're at Thanksgiving dinner. And Angela and Garen are having a little moment, and they're disagreeing about how someone cooked the turkey. And that's when I jump in and tell the truth. What am I going to do? I am absolutely going to sow seeds of discord, and I am going to destroy that marriage in 5 minutes, right? Depending on how juicy the truth in this hypothetical situation is, right? It's the same thing. I think everything in the Twitter files that's being released is probably, at least in part, if not mostly, true. But the only reason that Elon Musk is releasing it right now, in my opinion anyway, is to continue to further the divide in the country, right? Look, everything he has said, most of us have kind of accepted, at least in part, to be true anyway. It's just another Tuesday for us. He released that shit, and guys like us are sitting in our chairs going, okay, cool. We know that. But think about this. Where's the outrage? Who's doing anything about it? Who's occupying a wildlife area right now or sitting under an overpass on mounted horseback with AR-15s? Nobody. Not a single person. Who's marching on DC right now? Nobody. Essentially, what the PSYOP is now is they can tell you the truth and you won't do jack shit about it. The CIA literally just all but admitted that they killed Kennedy. The Kennedy files were kind of released, right? Biden kept some of it secret, but for the most, you even have Tucker Carlson, for Christ's sake, who used to decry people on Fox News for being 9/11 conspiracy theorists. In 2022, Tucker Carlson apologized publicly to 9/11 conspiracy theorists and came out and said, our government just admitted that they killed a sitting president. What are we going to do? And there was nothing. And that's the PSYOP. They can tell the truth all day. It doesn't matter. None of you are going to do shit about it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot I had mute on.
Oh, yeah.
I was listening to you, but I was getting in trouble in chat because I didn't have any moderators in there, and people were getting upset at me. So I had to make some people moderators to keep me from getting in trouble.
Starla, the answer to your question, PSYOP stands for psychological operation. It's an entire branch, or it's an entire MOS in the military. The Army has PSYOPs. Garen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Marines have PSYOP units too that work hand in hand with their SF guys.
Yep.
Basically, they're special forces newspaper boys is what they are. They're the guys who create the script to justify what our most elite warfighters do. But the term PSYOP has now been used everywhere else as a psychological operation where they're basically mind screwing you in a way to get you to feel a certain way or vote a certain way or act a certain way.
And then, all right, so we've discussed a couple of them. Now let's talk about the big one, the pandemic. All right. That was okay, Greta. It cracks me up every time you do that. So the amount of government interference in every aspect of the way the pandemic was handled is it's just outrageous. And I'm not going to lie, in my opinion, the the amount of pressure that they put on people to frame the narrative the way they did and behave a certain way they did because of the narrative led to a lot of, I mean, I don't understand why hospitals and doctors aren't being sued for malfeasance in all seriousness. I don't. I mean, we've seen all the you saw it got to the point, it got so bad that the newspapers that were taking marching orders from the Department of Health actually had to start reporting the truth on the efficacy of certain things. And you can literally go back in time from the same newspapers and watch the percentage rate fall as it became more and more obvious, and it became more and more impossible to hide.
Oh yeah. And then you saw stupid headlines that said something, things to the effect of COVID may not be as deadly as originally thought, but that's why it's even more deadly. And I'm like, whoa, who 1984 that shit? What is going on? You saw we're still seeing it now, the dumbest headlines of all time around that particular topic. It is insanity that anyone still takes it seriously.
Right. And that's the thing that got me. I've talked about this before. So Alexander Solzhenitsyn in the Gulag Archipelago.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the book, he's talking about how, the government lied to the people, and the people knew the government were lying to them, and the government knew that the people knew they were lying to them, and everybody pretended like nobody was lying. Right. And it almost seems that we've gotten to that point in America. Am I over exaggerating it or
no? I mean, if we're going to believe the stories, I'll preference it with that. But we saw stories about how kids were turning in their own parents at school, or ratting their parents out for being anti-jab. We saw everything about the psychological operation always has an underpinning foundation of fear, which is why let's talk about Nazi Germany. There was plenty of people knowing what was going on, but it didn't mean they still didn't love their Führer. It didn't mean that they still didn't love the Reich. Why? Because fear is a great motivator. And a lot of these people today are acting the same way that people did then, the same way that people who were party members of the Soviet regime did. The same people in China, part of that regime. Plenty of people understand that they're engaging in a lie, but the lie is safe and it feeds them. It's the same lie as the efficacy of the state in general. The state feeds you, it clothes you, it gives you a cell phone, it makes sure that your infrastructure is working just good enough to where you don't complain, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, nothing the state does actually is done well. Nothing that the state does can't be done better by private individuals and the free market. And yet we're too scared to try because we've become so addicted to the comfort of the lie. It's like a security blanket. By the time you're 10, you know there's nothing under your bed. But because for the last 5 years, ever since you got kicked out of your crib to your first twin bed, you're terrified of the dark, you still put that blanket up over your head. You know it's not true. You know there's nothing under the bed. But you still have that blanket over your head because it gives you the sense of security that most human animals require, because we are very much a herd animal when it comes down to it. We're very communal, and therefore they've done numbers of tests in other communal animals, such as chimpanzees and other animals of the sort, where they can condition chimpanzees to beat the shit out of each other if someone tries to do something different. We're no different. The only difference with us is we have free will. Right? We were given free will by the creator, but past that, genetically, they can do the same thing.
Well, I'm, there's a meme out there, and it's the protester sitting on the ground, and the policeman's got a great big can of bear spray, and he's spraying them right in the face. Yep. And the caption under the protesters say, "Want more government," and the caption on the police officer is "more government."
More government. Yep.
The narrative has been formed so successfully that that's where we are in this country right now. There are people that look towards the government as a savior in these times. And I guarantee you, I've said it before, I guarantee you that when things go south, there will be people in the streets protesting for more government intervention.
Of course they will.
And that doesn't come. I mean, it's counterintuitive and it's counterproductive for a business, which the media is a business, corporations are a business.
Mm-hmm.
It is counterproductive from a straight financial aspect to get in bed with the government. But like you said, they're able to apply pressure in different ways, all the way up to the monopoly on force, to force these companies. But they're doing it willingly now too, aren't they?
Sure. I mean, why not? There is a video that came out of Australia from 2020 or early 2021. I don't remember, but it's this big burly police officer totally tacked out enforcing the lockdowns. And he's got a 6-canister 40mm military grenade launcher, right? And the protesters are shouting at him, why are you doing this? We don't want this. This is not what the people want. And the police officer looks directly at this person, knowing he's being filmed, and says, I agree with you, but this is how I feed my kids.
Ouch. I missed that one.
This is why true people who believe in freedom have to oppose government, police, and militaries.
So Milkmaid's hoisting my own petard right now. Yeah. Because I'm always talking about the white pills, and we've been black pilling. So she's asking, she's what's the solution? What is the white pill for the social conditioning and for the interaction between the media and the government? What's the white pill?
Never watch it again. Never watch it. I don't watch the news. I don't learn about things that are happening from the news. I learn about them from people I know in certain areas and segments. I don't have the dong, this is a Fox News alert, or dun 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 dun, dun Communist News Network bringing to you live. All that jazz and pomp and circumstance and the sounds and the noise and the patriotic music and all that stuff serves as part of the psychological operation. It bumps you up. It amps you up. It's like soldiers who put their earpods in and listen to gangster rap or heavy metal before they get in the turret of that Humvee, knowing they're going into sudden death. You're pumping yourself up. That's what the news does. So turn it off. Period. You're not going to be informed. Don't look at me and say, well, I have to watch it so I can be informed. I'm a prepper. I need to know. You can't say that on one hand, then on the other hand, say you're not being informed because you're being lied to. Pick one. Unplug. Turn it off. Never watch it again. That's step one. Okay. Step two is carefully guard what your children watch on their cell phones. Look, it's 2022. Your kids are going to have one probably. That's fine. They serve a purpose. I have no problem with the cell phone per se. My kids don't get one until they're in school to the point where they have after school projects. So around 12 or 13 is when they'll probably get their first phone. They'll beg me for one. Until then, I'll tell them no. Well, my friends have one, and I'm like, I don't give a shit if your friends have one or not. I'm not your friend's parents. You're not getting one. Wait until their brains are a little hard, man. Don't just shove that device. Don't give them free reign. And when you see them, when they're in the room watching their little videos on YouTube or, whatever they're watching, have an ear and hear it. There's been more than one time that my wife and I will sit there and Ronan or Reagan or someone is watching something and I'm like, hey, what are you watching? Come over. And I'm like, block.
No.
You have to be a parent. And it's hard. I get it. I'm not trying to say this judgy. I'm just very passionate about it. It is hard. It is hard. Okay. So number one, turn it off. Number two, control what your children watch because you're their parent, not the state. Number three, be active with your school boards if you can, if you're not homeschooling. I understand not everyone can homeschool. I understand homeschooling isn't for everyone. I was homeschooled for 12 years. I left that not liking homeschool. I'm coming back into liking it again, but I didn't like it for a while. And I completely understand why some people wouldn't choose that option. But if you're going to have your kids in a public school, you sure as shit need to go to your parent-teacher conferences. Don't do that shit virtually. You get in there and you put yourself in front of your children's teacher and you make them see you face-to-face. I went to my kids' elementary school for parent-teacher conferences this year. And there was a little flyer that came in their backpack. Do you have any concern? I'm like, yeah, I want to know you're not grooming my kids. So by the time I got to the school, she's like, can you explain this? I'm like, yeah, you're not going to have drag queens in my kid's school. You're not going to have books in my kid's elementary school dealing with sexuality of any kind, heterosexuality included. They don't need to see that shit in elementary school. No. I said, you're not going to talk about Black Lives Matter. You're not going to talk about Antifa. You're not talking about politics in general. They're here to learn primary colors. 2 + 2 is 4. Water is wet. And man, monkeys are cool too. That's what they should be learning in elementary school, right?
Oh yeah.
And she was very receptive to the fact that I did it, but I made sure to look at her. Every time my older kids got in trouble at school for something, I and my wife went to the school, and we would go down to the principal's office and talk to them. And I would get in the principal's face. I threatened my kid's principal more than once with physical bodily harm because F you, it's my kid.
Yeah.
Don't care. What are you going to do about it? You have to adopt a warrior's mentality. You have to adopt a mentality of sovereignty, that you are a lion and no one's going to take your kids. No one's going to take your stuff. No one's going to take your money, and stand your ground. If not, you're oatmeal and you're going to get molded by whoever is stronger than you.
Here we go. Where is it? Stop denying your agency.
Yes.
Stop denying your agency. That is the whole key there. They get the narrative going, and they get us to not act in our best interest, and without free will is what they've done with that narrative. And it's really
adopt an attitude that you're in charge, man. I mean, don't let them talk to you in that tone. They're a bunch of pencil neck, bean counting, dip dunk dorks without a manly bone to rub between them anyway.
And I would say another white pill solution to this is, if you live in a small town, get involved with your newspaper.
Yes.
Get involved. Go down and talk to them. And the town, we haven't done it here because we don't live close to town and we don't interact with a lot of people in town. But when we lived over on the Missouri side, we knew the editor of the newspaper. She was when Angela was working at the bank, she was one of the clients there, and we interacted with her on a social level, just in the small town setting. Okay, we're going to take for a second. Okay, Bobby and Grumpy, got a question for you. Do you believe elections are rigged?
That's the wrong question.
Okay, what's the question?
The question is, are they owned? If they're owned, there is no rigging. I'm sorry, but you did not get 2020 stolen from you. You did not. You didn't own it to begin with. The federal government has owned federal, presidential, and most Senator and House of Representative elections since Kennedy. Kennedy was the warning shot across the bow. Reagan's assassination attempt was the second time, and no one's questioned since, with the exception of Ron Paul, maybe a couple of others. But for the most part, no, they're not rigged, and it wasn't stolen. They're just not yours. It's all, as Frank Zappa wisely said, politics is the entertainment division of the military-industrial complex. They are here to entertain you. It is the WWE. So you didn't get your way. Tough. Turn off the channel.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This is just, and I can't help but think you say they're owned, the whole super delegate thing on the Dem side, and the same people that suffered underneath the super delegate thing with Bernie back in 2016 go flocking right back to the very people that openly that was taken out of the hands of the people. That one was that nomination was, and
all of them are. Think about this. When is the last time a single homegrown candidate to run for anything past maybe city council or school board election? Name one presidential candidate in your lifetime that came from some grassroots homegrown thing that wasn't somebody that was handed to you on a ballot by the party. Right. Every year you get 10 to 12 establishment candidates. And when they bring in an outsider, someone like Barack Obama, right? Okay, so the guy was never involved in federal politics before, but he just won the Senate seat. He was highly involved in political action packs in Chicago, right? None of these people just magically appear, right? They are force-fed to you. You have a choice, but your choice is between the choices you're given.
I still remember when he gave the speech at the 2012 Democrat convention. I still remember watching that speech, and I turned to Angela and I looked at her and I said, they're going to make that guy president one day.
Yep.
You could tell it then by the way they were fawning over him and the way that the politicians were talking about it.
Dude, but that's it, right? That proves your point. We all saw when he won that Senate seat and Michelle Obama came up there, tucking her bulge, whatever, gets up there on stage and says, "My
Hey,
man,
hang on a
my
second.
baby's daddy."
Don't be making fun of Big Mike there. Don't be making fun of Big Mike.
No, but she got up there and was all ghetto, right? And well, I'm sorry, he got up there and was all ghetto about his husband. And all of a sudden, everybody, this guy might actually be presidential material. No one even knew who he was yet, right?
Yeah.
They started the minute he won that Senate seat, right? He was being talked about. He didn't even, I believe he didn't even serve a full term in the Senate.
Okay, that kind of segues into something, a tangent of that. Wasn't Bill Ayers? Wasn't it verified that he was working with the government in some form when with the
Yes,
the weather?
with the Weather Underground.
Yeah, wasn't that finally verified?
Yes.
Yeah, and guess who was his mentor?
Barack
Or no,
Obama.
not who who Obama's mentor was.
Yeah, Bill Ayers.
It was Bill Ayers, and
Yep.
he was just some guy. And the newspapers and the media never explored that, And my goodness,
Man, look, at this stage, another part of this one's going to be unpopular too, but I'm going to say it. A good way to white pill: stop worrying about elections.
Oh, local elections.
School board, sure. But even there, I mean, at the end, if you're homeschooling your kids, why do you give a shit? What difference does it make?
Oh, okay.
Are you going to give your guns up if the Democrats win and say you have to?
No.
Are you going to stop collecting rainwater because your local county says you have to?
Nope, not anymore.
Are you going to register your garden with the federal government?
Oh, I'm not going to lie, Spags. There was probably a point in time in my life where I would have probably complied a long time ago.
Sure. We all had to come from somewhere, right? No one's born an anarchist. But no, seriously, think about it. Imagine if we took all of the effort and all of the passion and all of the resources we dump into popularity contests and put it towards, I don't know, teaching your kids how to do something cool with their hands.
Yeah.
How much better would the world be if we just stopped caring? They're going to do what they're going to do. They have all the money and the tanks and the nukes and the aircraft carriers. You're not going to stop them, so stop trying. Live your life, be free, and ignore them. I haven't voted in an election since 2013.
Really?
Yeah.
Really.
And guess what?
My
life hasn't changed.
I still go through the perfunctories. Starla wants to know that now we're anarchists.
I have been for over a decade.
What about everybody that's listening to you right now? If they're agreeing with you, do they have anarchy?
I doubt it. Most people think of that word and all that they hear is Antifa or BLM, and that's not actually accurate. That's more psyop from the news.
Well, Antifa is, again, this is the narrative was formed by the media about Antifa. They are the, well, hang on, what did it say? The actual exercise of strong autocratic and dictatorial control, early instances of army fascism. They are the fascist army for the government.
Of course they are. Which is why when they claim to be anarchist, you just have to roll your eyes and laugh. Anarchy is a Latin word, a for no and archy for ruler. That's all it means is no rulers. Nobody rules my life. No president, no congressman, no sheriff, no judge. Now, yeah, they can show up because they have more guns than I do. And if they really want to make a point to take me, I understand there's not much I can do about it.
Yeah.
But there's also not much I can do about getting cancer in some instances, right? I can't help if I walk off and get hit by a car. Fate's going to happen. And government is part of that fate. And the minute you start looking at government the same way you do disease and boils and butt blisters, you're going to realize just why you shouldn't worry about it. It's going to happen if it's going to happen. If not, live free.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the whole point of our channel and your channel too, is trying to get people to think about their freedom more often. Tag and I did that Principles of Freedom series. That the whole purpose of that was to make people look at the Constitution and understand what the freedoms were as they were laid out in the Constitution.
Mhm.
You know, how many, and I considered myself pretty dialed in on that subject. And even doing that, we still learn stuff. Jules, I knew Spags was an anarchist. That's why I told him I'm going to nominate him for Speaker of the House.
Her and I had a
Well,
funny conversation on one of my videos about that.
dude, that would be awesome.
I did. I will say this. This will surprise people in your audience, but I actually worked for Congress for about 8 years. I worked for Congresswoman Len Jenkins. I was a caseworker. I was a congressional aide. I did Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, immigration, and State Department casework. And she knew I was a libertarian anarchist, and she didn't care because I was really good at doing casework, because I actually gave a shit about people. Mm-hmm. And there was, oh God, I think it was 2015. I ran for president. I had a Facebook page. I had all kinds of stuff. Like I had a picture my wife took of me in the front yard. I had a whole bunch of like stuffed animals piled up. And I had like a safari hat and a tan vest. And I was holding my Mauser with my foot up on the animals. And I said, uncharacteristically more pro-gun than the Second Amendment, and stuff like that. I had a picture that was photoshopped of me with my arm around Storm from the X-Men movies holding a shotgun. I'm going to take this election by storm. It was all kind of just really off the cuff, irreverent shit. And I kind of got in trouble by the chief of staff that worked for her. He's like, man, you got to take that site down. So
yeah, but the internet is forever, folks. There's
a call them on Facebook and kept going.
There's a call to action there, folks. You guys need to go out after we're done here and scour the internet and find those pictures.
Spags, I had 2 vice presidential candidates running with me. I had Veep number 1 and Veep number 2 because someone should have your back whether you're going number 1 or number 2. I had all kind of really crazy campaign slogans. It was awesome.
Milkmaid's taking off. Okay, thanks for stopping by Milkmaid. Glad you could make it in the chat.
I got 161 votes.
Did you really?
Yeah, several of them from out of state. I wasn't even old enough at the time to be on the docket. People wrote it in. It was fun, but it was irreverent. It made fun of the system in all the ways it was supposed to, right? It illustrated the point, that this is all a game. It's all a circus sideshow, and you're spending way too much time getting ulcers over it.
Well, what did Rush used to say? Illustrate the absurd through absurdity.
Yeah.
And maybe that's another white pill. Maybe starting to mock the whole thing in a very open and loud manner.
Yes.
Is a solution.
That's the beauty of what is it? 4chan, right? Now a lot of people don't like 4chan because it is just nothing but trolls. But they're all center right and libertarian and anarcho-capitalists, such as myself. They literally make fun of everything. And there's now been complete studies done by people in intelligentsia about the power of memes, that memes have become absolutely influential in modern American society because it's an image with very few words, right? And so it attacks your brain where certain algorithms start firing, and it conveys things in a way where I could talk to you for an hour and talk about it, or I can show you a meme. And they're now showing that memes are actually having more influence and more immediate psychological operations. So yeah, why not? Why not make fun of them? It's all we can do.
Oh, and you can definitely influence stuff. You know how this became a racist symbol, a symbol of white power? There were a bunch of guys on 4chan that were figuring out how to screw with people, and somebody posted something along the lines of let's make the OK symbol a white power symbol. Right. So they started hammering it on 4chan and then putting it out in social media. And within about 3 weeks, it was on the nightly news on the major news networks that this was a white power symbol.
Yeah.
And so you can go back
torch, apparently.
Yeah, you can go back and actually it's still out on 4chan at some place. I remember looking it up about 6 months ago when I heard about that, and it's still there. You can still see the conversation. Mm-hmm. So we can influence this stuff.
Sure. Think about it, man. In 2008, I was a hardcore rhino. I was a straight up neocon. I loved George Bush. I loved Ronald Reagan. I thought that, the Republicans were gods and could do no wrong. I go to Iraq, and within a year, my entire worldview was shattered by what I saw there. I come back, I go independent. In Topeka, Kansas, where I live, at the time, the chief of police wanted to make open carry illegal. Okay, so it was the Libertarian Party of Kansas that came up and defended the Second Amendment, not the Republicans. In fact, the Kansas Rifle Association didn't want to touch the issue because they thought it was too hot of an issue. So here comes the Libertarians, the only ones defending my right to openly carry a firearm. So I'm like, okay, what's libertarianism? So I started getting into the libertarian thing, and I became a libertarian. And then progressively over time, I was a capital L party libertarian, really hot and heavy. I was asked to run for office more than once. I was involved in several campaigns, hot and heavy for the party, right? I was out knocking on doors, preaching the good news of libertarians and Ron Paul, right? And then over time, some of my friends at the time who themselves were anarchists started asking me very probing questions that I could not answer. And it wasn't until I started hearing these questions and really deep diving them that I started to realize that anarchism wasn't what I thought it was. It wasn't what we've all been taught it was, and it was the only moral path forward. And that you could have all the safeguards of society that we currently have with anarchism. It just means there's no central monopoly on the use of force, essentially.
And we're going to have a conversation at some point, probably multiple conversations about anarchism, because I've got some serious questions about it because, and I have talked about it before.
It's a hard pill to swallow, man. It's hard to let go of the safety blanket. It's hard to say, oh, I don't need the state. Oh, I don't need the government. I'm perfectly capable of ruling my own life.
I don't need the TV telling me what to do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But okay, that banner's been up there enough. I thought that apparently they were like, I'm waiting for YouTube to take him down because he did the white power symbol. Oh, that's not a white power symbol. That's an OK sign. And it was for educational purposes only.
I remember back when I was young in the church and my dad, back in the 80s, there was a lot of religious conspiracy, right? Like a lot.
Well, and right
now I'm starting to realize some of it was probably true, but that this was 666. It was the sign of the Antichrist, right? And the peace sign was the sign of the broken cross. It was actually a satanic symbol. And I mean, who knows? I'm sure different people use different things for different reasons.
Oh, you're talking way back during the satanic panic times.
Yeah, the early 80s, man, when all those comic books, those Christian comic books were coming out, showing people pushing razor blades down into apples to hand out at Halloween and all that kind of stuff. It was, fear sells even in the Christian circles, man.
I wonder if that was a psyop, because you still see things at Halloween. Take your candy to be
X-ray,
it's
worse. My kids were watching, the morning cartoons recently on PBS, right? And I freaking hate these cartoons because they're super woke. So I don't even let them watch them a whole lot. Right. Some of them are okay, right? You kind of have to fish through to pick what you want. But this one episode has this story of this little girl that lives in the Bronx, and her friends go to the park, and the local municipal employee from Parks and Rec is out there raking the leaves into piles, and the kids want to go jump. What's Dad do in this cartoon? He's like, hold on, I got to make sure the piles are safe. And he goes and gets a stick and starts poking the piles of leaves to make sure it's safe for the kids to jump in.
Well, hold on a second. To be fair, to play devil's advocate, it was the Bronx. It could have been full of hypodermic needles.
They could have found a hand.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm thinking to myself, though, this is a story of this kid in the Bronx, and Dad's poking the leaf piles. What is that telling someone from where we live, though? Like, dude, I just rake the piles up and let the kids jump. Oh, Dad, I can't do it. I got to poke it with a stick. Yeah. Nah, I'm not doing it.
Goodness. Okay, so we have covered what fascism is. We have covered we have covered how the intelligence agencies and the media are working hand in hand, and we served up a great big old helping of black pills to people. And we could probably do another hour of nothing but the black pills that we've been fed over the past years. And then we've given solutions. Where do you want to go with this conversation next? We just hit an hour. We can keep talking.
Let's give the final solution.
Okay. Oh no.
That's probably a bad way to put that. Jesus. Okay, let's give a final way that we can work on this, and that is to build the alternative economy and the alternative community. Okay, it is said that within the Muslim communities in Michigan, that a dollar bill circulates 20 to 22 times amongst that community before it ever leaves. Why the hell aren't homesteaders and preppers doing that?
Good question.
Why?
Good question.
And I've been involved in the prepping and homesteading space for 2 decades. And there's this very odd aversion to money that they have. They don't want to make money. They don't want to do, and that's fine if you don't. But what that generally means is I have met more preppers and homesteaders who are willing to go to Sam's Club to get eggs for super cheap than they are to buy them for a little more from their neighbor. And that's shameful.
Yeah.
That is shameful.
Yeah. And I'm shaking my head as a big hypocrite because we do not do enough here to advocate that.
But you try. You're part of the Midwest thing, the Midwest preparedness.
Yeah,
you're on freesteading. You're part of the Jackson County project and all that. Look, everyone's a hypocrite. No one can live this way 100%. We're all dependent on the system in some way. No matter how free you get, there's always going to be somebody that holds something over you, right? Mm-hmm. There's no way to become 100%. We're not gods. We're not meant to become deities on this planet. We're meant to toil and struggle, and through struggle, over time, we can become perfected through our faith. But we're not going to do that here. So it's okay if you're a little hypocritical. Everybody is. See, that's another one of those words that gets thrown around. You're just a hypocrite because, 3 years ago, I saw you blah, blah, blah. Dude, I'm an anarchist and I've worked for the government most of my life. So what? Yeah, I'll take their money. It's mine. They took it from me to begin with. So yeah, I still shop at Walmart, but guess what? I don't buy eggs there.
Yeah.
I don't buy any meat from Walmart other than hot dogs. I don't make my own hot dogs, but I raise my own animals. I slaughter them, I butcher them, or I hunt them myself. And if I lived next door to you and you had chicken eggs and I had duck eggs, I would fully expect that we would barter them.
Oh, absolutely.
I wouldn't be going to Walmart to buy chicken eggs, and you wouldn't be going to the farmer's market to spend 4 times as much on duck eggs. I'm a house painter by trade. I can also do carpentry. I know you have skills. We know that the guys over at Hacks for the Homestead have skills. We know the guys at Life Done Free have skills. We know guys at Deep with Data have skills. We know everyone around us has skills. So who am I going to call as a prepper, a homesteader, and as somebody who believes in freedom? We have to create the counter economy. We have to create the counter culture, and we have to live as much as possible what we claim to believe. Okay? And yeah, we're all going to stumble. We're all going to fall. No one's asking for perfection. But for heaven's sake, man, you can drive 30 minutes into town to get your eggs, or you can spend $2 more with your neighbor. What are you going to do? And that's a very brief and general and very generic example, but you get the point I'm making.
Yeah.
We have to spend our money with each other. And by money, I also mean our time, our energy, and our resources.
Right.
If I have an extra 2x4 and you're rebuilding something and you need a 2x4, I'm going to give you my 2x4. Or I'm going to trade it to you, or I'm going to sell it to you. Whatever level of economic exchange we agree on, but we do it with each other, right?
That's one of the great things. I complain about 2022 being a terrible year, and then I just really this whole homestead thing is just threw me for a loop the last year. But the one big positive thing that has happened to us out here is that what you were just talking about is we trade stuff all the time with people now. We trade services, we trade goods, and we're constantly doing stuff back and forth, and it's really good.
Yeah. Jules, that hurts.
Well, he's
the story I was telling you about.
Is it too soon to make jokes about that, Spags?
I'm unfiltered. Do what you want. No, it's not. It's never too soon. I've gotten over it. I told the dog I still love him.
Spags had a very unfortunate incident with between his dog, some steaks he'd been saving for a year, and dogs being dogs. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, that was mean, Jules.
You have a dog the size of a horse,
But it happens. I was telling you the story about the Virginia ham that the the Basset Hound got on Easter one year. So, but anyway, so to do what you were just talking about, people need tools. People need avenues where they can do that. Do you happen to know of any avenues where people can pursue stuff like that in a virtual manner?
Number one, go to Freesteading. You can either go to freesteading.com on the internet, or you can go to the app. It's on both Apple and Android, and go to your local state page. Pretty much a bunch of us got together and created our own social media platform. And it's not perfect yet, but neither was Facebook in 2007, and y'all stuck with it, right? So stick with us. We create our own stuff, right? We create our own spaces. Go to your local state page. There's a Kansas page. I'm on that Kansas page. I'm also a community leader on that entire platform. You can come join my page and listen to me spew my lines of bullshit all day if you want, or you don't have to either. It doesn't matter. You can go to Grumpy's page. You can go to Life Done Freeze page. You can go to Perma Pastures or Deep South or whoever you want that's on there. Pinball Preparedness.
Local Prepper just started.
I'm sorry?
I said Local Prepper just started.
Yeah, Local Prepper. I actually had a video call with him the other day for a completely unrelated thing, and we ended up talking freesteading, and now he's on. And him and I are going to be doing some stuff together here soon. I really like the guy. We really hit it off real well. You'd like him. He's a former Marine.
I'm subscribed to his channel. I get on his live every now and then.
He's there now.
And there's two Marines on freesteading now, so you guys better be careful. We may take over.
Oh God, yellow crayons for everyone.
red crowns.
So there's that. Here coming up in April, we have the next Midwest preparedness thing. We're still developing the plan for it. We don't have any information to give you yet other than the dates. Dates can be found on MeWe, which is the social media platform I'm on outside of freesteading. You can find it on the calendar at freesteading. And if you're still addicted to Bookface, you can find it on Bookface. Look for Midwest Preparedness Project. And there's plenty of stuff that gets given away, plenty of prizes, good classes, all sorts of neat stuff happens there. And we work to network a lot with other groups. I'm not going to give away too much on that yet because there's some secret squirrel stuff that I've been trying to hold back on, but I'm going to start pulling these rabbits out of hats soon, and I'm hoping everyone's going to like it. I've been kind of working on some stuff under the scenes. But there's plenty of ways you can do it, man. There are literally millions of places you can go and find the local groups in your area. When I ran Full Spectrum Preparedness back in the day, we had FSP Topeka, FSP Kansas City, and FSP Wichita. We had meetup groups we created for people, and we would go out and the company would get a meeting room and invite everybody on it. We would set local people up as the moderators and the admins of these different Facebook pages back then. There was no central control. We got local people to run local pages. And there was just a few rules since they were repping our brand, right? So to rep our brand, you had to do certain things. You had to have one camp out a year. You had to have at least one meeting every month. You had to do this. You had to do this. And all the rules were designed to make it a better environment for folks who wanted to come and learn. We built trading networks. We did all kinds of stuff, man. And we're starting to do it again. And so, yeah, there's plenty of opportunities. Come see us at the camp out. Get on these sites. Support alternative. Tomorrow I have a video coming out on my channel called 3 Crutches I've Kicked. And, I've kind of alluded to what one of those was tonight, and there's 2 others, 3 things, and it's meant to be a message of inspiration. So how about you do it? Get on freesteading. If you're still on Facebook, fine. Get on the pages there. If you're on MeWe, any of this stuff, and post inspirational stuff. Give people a reason to look at their phone other than the news, other than the Kardashians, other than who's dancing with who on the stars, right? That's what I did on freesteading today. I'm like, what did you do today to get a little freer? And some people started posting their replies, right? And then it created a dialogue. And as the day goes on, you wash the dishes, you go out and take care of the birds, you go out and take care of something in the garden, you come back and you check. We can edify each other's minds, bodies, and souls by not being parasitic. We can be the exact opposite of the things we hate. You just have to participate. So speaking of alternatives, there is a group. Hang on a second. I get a big old fat cat. Look at this thing. Look how big she is. This is a huge cat. Kitties.
But there's a group of creators on YouTube that run afoul of YouTube quite often. And they got fed up with the censorship and they went out and they created their own platform. It's called Liberty Tree Fellowship, and they're basically it's a blog, and they're posting videos that they can't post on YouTube. And I'm actually going to interview one of the guys that's behind that on the 18th, so 2 weeks from today. So be looking for that. I mean,
Awesome.
so we need to, like Spags says, we need to support each other and support these alternative things. Yeah, Jules, it's natives involved in that. Okay.
All right, so the Midwest Preparedness Project in April will be April 26th through April 30th for those interested.
Okay.
Those are the dates. We don't have any final details yet on anything else.
We have to discuss something, and I'm going to make a confession here. Spags changed my mind about something. He did a video. He did a video about the stupid stuff that conservatives say, and he was talking about the AR platform rifles. And he and I went back and forth last night several times about how I disagree with him. But he said something that made me change my mind about it. He said, "What are you going to do when the zombies attack?" And I started thinking about it. So, folks, I want to introduce you to something. I want to introduce you to my American defensive rifle. That rifle can be used to defend yourself against wild rabid animals, against criminals, against hordes of zombies, and even a tyrannical government. So Spags won the day.
There you go. Take it back. Take the language back. Take words back. Don't let them control the definitions of shit. Who cares what they said?
Absolutely. I had to do that, man. I had to bring that up. That was just that conversation was just too good.
I value that.
If you guys haven't gone and watched his, number one, go watch the 5 branches video after this, because it's very pertinent to what we're talking about. And then go back and watch you got a series of them, the stupid things that X say.
Right. I've done one stupid shit liberals say, then I did stupid shit conservatives say, and I've been asked to do stupid shit libertarians say. So I'm going to have to really spoof myself on this one. But I'm going to do it because I'm going to be fair, because I'm going to be honest. There's a reason I'm not a party libertarian anymore, because most of them smell funny and all they want to do is smoke pot while being naked on a beach. Which, if that's your thing, great. I'm not going to judge you, but there's a lot more to life than that, Yeah.
Hey, I'll vote for a libertarian presidential candidate as long as they can tell me where Aleppo, Syria is.
Well, that's the problem with the Libertarian Party. They run retards, man.
Dude,
you had that Gary Johnson who didn't know where Aleppo was, and then you have, who was the gal that ran against Biden and Trump, and she was taking a knee, saying Antifa was justified in some of their actions, and I'm like, libertarianism is built on private property as the foundation for everything. How can you say that? It was dumb. You're frozen.
There we go. I'm back. Are you dude, I completely lost you. I thought that YouTube had struck, man. I thought I had pushed it too far.
It's the Russians.
Oh my gosh. I was like, oh my God, did I just push it? Did I just push it past the limit?
No, probably not. This is why I'm not going to monetize. As long as I don't monetize, I'm not going to get knocked for copyright infringements and saying what I want. It isn't until they want to give me money that all of a sudden the algorithm really catches you, right? So I will probably, if I've gotten away this far, right, and not gotten a single strike, then I just don't think I'm going to monetize. I don't think there's enough money in it to be worth my time anyway.
Well, I'm telling you, we got monetized and we're trying to make a go of it, but I decided that we're gonna push it, and if they turn us off, they turn us off. No big deal.
Do you have your stuff auto set to populate to Rumble yet?
Yes, everything. You can see all my videos over on Rumble, We used to post them on Facebook too, but the link broke somehow, and I'm too lazy to go over and post them by hand. I don't do Facebook. I don't do Angela's the Facebook person, and I don't even think she's doing it that. So yeah, so that was one of those things that. So, Joel says ScrewTube takes 40% of the revenue. Why monetize? Well, because I look at the morons that are out there making money off of YouTube, and if YouTube wants to take 40% of advertiser money and give me 60% for doing something I would do anyway, I'm having fun. I'm having fun making these videos. This is fun. I enjoy interacting with you guys. I enjoy sharing our experiences. You know, I can't do the hobbies I used to do because of, you know, bad fingers, bad eyes, and I would do it. So if they want to give me money for entertaining myself, then by all means, you know.
You know what we should do? We should turn this franchise around. We should start making masks that have anti-conservative slogans on them and selling them online. Let's take the liberals' money. Screw it.
Oh, dude. The next camp out. Let's talk about some of the phone apps that we've discussed to take advantage of that, the fact that they enjoy spending their money on social causes.
Yep. Hey, when your entire self-worth is based on virtue signaling, you can fleece these dumbasses for money all day long. And as an unashamed, unapologetic capitalist, guess what, you dumb liberals? I will take your money. Don't care. I won't feel dirty doing it either.
Nope.
I'm going to buy a new gun with it.
Absolutely. Okay, man. It's getting close to 8:30. I'm gonna have to do some stuff to get ready for bed.
Yeah, I got to get my kids to bed too.
Why don't you tell everybody what's going on in your channel in your future and what they can expect?
Well, first thing you can expect is some profanity. Just going to warn everybody right now. Now, I am trying to curve it. I've landed the B-52F bomber, but every now and then it takes off. So you can probably expect a few less F-bombs. I'm trying to be a little more polite and polished. But past that, you're going to get an unfiltered dude. I'm going to talk like I did here tonight. I'm going to discuss topics of social importance. I'm going to rail against the political system. I'm going to rail against the state. I'm going to rail against all that is antichrist, in my opinion. And I am going to do everything I can to build you up in the mindset of faith and freedom. And it's going to be a weird mix. You're probably not used to dudes like me in this space, but until I'm told I'm no longer welcome, I'm going to keep going.
I meant to say something about the whole Antichrist thing and your 5 branches thing. I want to clarify something about that with people. When Spags says the government is Antichrist, he's not saying it is the Antichrist. He is saying it is
in the spirit of Antichrist.
Yes, it is Antichrist in its behavior. and so there, because I know a lot of people hear that word and they immediately think horns, pitchfork, and a tail, right? Mm-hmm. So we need to make sure.
Well, I did kind of use a pentagram as kind of my visual aid.
It worked.
It worked. It got the point across, right?
Yes, it did. Exactly. You know, and you kind of did it, and then mic dropped and walked off the screen.
Your government has legalized the murder of children. Prove to me that it's not Antichrist.
You know, that's a whole nother issue.
Not my government. Hashtag not my government.
So, okay. So with us, oh my gosh, like I said on the live stream, I'm going to start trying to do more lives on Thursdays. I've got one lined up on the 18th. I don't have one lined up next week, but we'll see. There's enough people out there that want to talk about themselves that I can get people on, and I mean that in a good way. I'm not dogging people out when I say that. I mean that in a good way.
Jonathan's right. Jonathan is 100% right.
What did Jonathan say? I missed.
The government is almost by nature extremely anti-God.
Well, it has to be. It has to be because it wants to replace. Mm-hmm. It wants to replace any religious figure and become the moral arbitrator of what's right and wrong, and how to save you. That it has
Go
to.
read the 1 Samuel chapter 8. Israel wants a king. What does the prophet of God say to Israel? These are the things you can expect if you get a king, and it has to do with taxes, conscription into the military, taking your kids as servants, taxes, and all this other stuff. And it doesn't list any of that in a positive light.
Nope.
None of it.
Nope. I'm pretty impressed you're able to spout off these books and verses. I could never. I have to have.
Preacher. I was in seminary at one point.
Were you
I
really?
can quote the Bible more accurately most of the time than most ardent evangelicals.
Dude, I have to have the book with me because I can't remember number. I remember like a few select ones, but other than that, I've got to have a reference for it.
I was homeschooled, like I said, so part of my curriculum every day was Bible class the first hour. And by the time I was 7, 8 years old, I was quoting entire chapters of scripture. I had to. It was part of what I was forced to do as a kid. And I hated it for a while, but I'm very glad at this point my parents did that. I've come back around to appreciating the fact that I was forced to memorize scripture. Every
time Spags come on here, folks, he's like an onion. We peel one more layer off, and we find something else that's in there, and he usually makes us cry.
I'm never going to tell you though that a guy can get pregnant.
Oh, I hope not. We couldn't handle it. Men can't handle it.
Nope.
Anyway, with our channel, that's it. Just we're gonna keep plugging along. We kind of last 6 months we've kind of narrowed our focus down, and we know what we are now, and we know what our target audience is, and we're just gonna try to provide better content. And we hope to see people at different things. Here's another call to action for everybody, especially if you're on free studying. If you know about a festival in your state, prepper, homesteading, whatever, get on the calendar and put it on there so everybody can find out about it. I just posted there's on the 28th of January out by Hemsford, Nebraska. There's a kidding and lambing class going on that people in Nebraska didn't even know the association that was given it existed. So we need to be getting that information out there and helping each other. And I'll tell you what, Spags had a great idea. If you live within driving distance of northeastern Kansas, you might find the entire northeastern Kansas contingent of patriots showing up at your festival.
I agree with you, Jonathan.
Most ardent evangelists don't actually read the Bible outside of snippets. This is one thing I've realized about a lot of them and about myself. I'm guilty. Jules is trying to get out of her state, so she's not going to post any.
Everyone's a hypocrite, man. We're sinners.
Yeah, absolutely sinners.
Just as long as you're in a constant state of repentance and you're striving to be better, that's what matters.
Talking about your comment about hypocrites earlier and about this right now, I don't care if somebody calls me a hypocrite anymore. In fact, especially if it's in reference to the church, people say, "Oh, the church is full of hypocrites." You know what? It absolutely is, and there's always room for one more.
That's who it's supposed to be full of.
Absolutely.
Jesus didn't hang out with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. He hung out with harlots and tax collectors. His first miracle was a boozer thing, man. He didn't go to the tabernacle and fill the coffers with tithes. He made booze. Come on.
This is why we love you. Okay, man. You got any final thoughts for everybody?
Thanks for coming. Thanks for tolerating me. I know I'm a tough pill to swallow. I know my message isn't for everybody. Thanks, Grumpy, for having me on again. And I've had a great time.
It's always a joy to talk with you, man. We don't hang out nearly enough, but when we do, it's quality time. It's quality time.
Yep.
So okay, folks, thanks for stopping by. If you got anything you want to add to the conversation, go ahead and post it down in the comments below as soon as we're done. We love hearing from you and you guys sharing your experiences. Take my calls to action and do them. Number one, we got to find those pictures of Spags as presidential candidate. That's going to be awesome.
If you can find it, I'll be impressed, because I personally scrubbed my Facebook. I left all 3 of my Facebook accounts and I deleted everything by hand. So if you can find it, good for you.
If you guys can find it before, like a week before April 26th, if you can find one of those photos,
I'll send you some free Spags Unfiltered stickers.
I will make one into a poster and we'll hang it up at the Midwest Preparedness Festival.
Yes.
So if you guys can find one, my Google feed is just terrible anymore. But if one of you guys can find it, I will make a poster.
I was in a lot better shape back then, and one of my campaign posters was me in just a pair of underwear, holding a cleaver and a bunch of yellow hair from my yellow lab at the time. And because I was running against Trump, the caption was, "It's not a wig." Find it, I dare you.
You were ahead of the curve because what's that C-rate actor or comedian that got in all the trouble?
Oh, the redheaded gal?
Yeah. You were doing that before she did, man.
That's how big it is, Jonathan. It would probably fit on the sides. I don't know that it would fit on the spine. It's a little thick for the spine, but And like Trump, I have bigly hands.
Okay, folks. Really enjoyed the conversation. Really enjoyed having you guys here. Sorry we did not interact more with the chat. Just Spags and I start talking and we kind of get in that zone. So I want to say, you guys have a great evening, have a great tomorrow, and most of all, go live a life done free.
Amen.